All right, I'm going to wait for some people to get in here before we start on everything. In the meantime, I've got the chat pulled up. So if you're wanting to drop some bets that you have today or questions that you have early on, please drop them in here. Just doing some last second tidying up, and I will start with weather and injuries and all that stuff here momentarily. I see we're getting some people in. Looks like Kent State is taking some really late money. Game kicks off here in about an hour. Um, I think that's probably power rating stuff. Power ratings all year have been telling me to bet Kent State in every game, and I can't. I can't do it. I just can't. Okay. Welcome in. Thanks everyone for joining me over here on YouTube. Usually this is our Discord Saturday morning live. But we moved it over to YouTube just to see how it works over here. Hopefully accessing more people as this goes on. Thanks for joining me today. Give an explainer here in about let's give him one more minute and then I'll dive into everything. Okay, 11 a.m. on the dot. Let's roll. Thanks everyone again for joining over here on YouTube. Usually a Discord live show, but I think we're going to move this over to YouTube moving forward every week. Hopefully, access more people. If you are new to the lines and Discord is something that interests you, please go ahead and follow a link. You can follow it on my Twitter at Road to CFB, or you can find it posted all over our website, The Lines. We have over 4,000 community members over on that Discord server. And don't forget to follow The Lines on Twitter at The Lines US. And be sure to check out our other shows that are on this channel, including Beat the Closing Number with Eli Hershkovitz and Mo Noir. They do a fantastic job over there covering the NFL currently. The Lines Megapod with our editor, Stephen Andres and Matt Brown. And the Lions College Football Podcast with myself and Kelly Ford. That comes out multiple times a week. I'll be covering Tuesday games. We'll be covering weeknight games as well as a Saturday slate if you haven't checked that out already. If you're looking for leans, if you're looking for explanations of bets, you can find my work at thelines.com, or you can just drop a chat in here. I'll be sure to answer them as I go. I'm going to start off with some late line movement, the important stuff that came in overnight this morning, injury stuff, injury updates, weather updates. There's a lot of that stuff going on today. If you have questions, please throw them in the chat. I will answer them as I go. Pardon me. And at the end, I'll open up to questions about any games that I am not covering here this morning. But starting off with the morning movers, the over-under in Ohio at Northern Illinois. This isn't really this morning, but it dropped 2 touchdowns this week. It opened up at 56, 57 and a half over at Circa. Now we're talking about like 43, 44 and a half. So that was a big mover. That to me was just posted a bad line there early in the week, or good line for those of us that were able to jump on it. Purdue also taking money this morning. We're down to plus 17, plus 17 and a half in some spots. That was 19 and a half, 20 and a half, pretty statically throughout the week. And the over in this game did move through 52, 52 being one of the more key figures in college football total betting in the last 5 years. So over in Purdue, Ohio State, Purdue, I think people are starting to realize that the weather's not so bad in West Lafayette. I know that there's a big cold front, big storm system sweeping through the United States, central and eastern. It's not really causing as much havoc as I think people early in the week anticipated. So we're seeing some buyback on overs. We're seeing some money come in on Purdue. That's not all that surprising. I will get to some of the injuries that are taking place in that game here in a second. Sharp money also moved Maryland down through 14. It was 14 and a half a lot of the time this week. Now they're down to 13 and a half, and there has not been buyback on Illinois. I know Maryland's a better team there. That is a game that is going to be affected by weather. Heavy rain over there in the DMV area. Florida is also taking some money. They're down to minus 1.5, -2. It was 2.5 all week long, or I'm sorry, plus 1.5, +2. 2.5 all week. Keep an eye on that. That was definitely some sharp movement. I think they're probably waiting to see if a 3 would pop. A 3 did not pop. The late bets are coming in on Florida against South Carolina. We have Akron and Bowling Green also seeing some late line movement. I did hear some of the betting groups were hitting some of those. I don't know. I'm not really there with Bowling Green. Bowling Green's my alma mater. I follow them closely. I don't think they're really that good. And Buffalo's a team that has just absolutely destroyed them in the past several meetings, especially in Buffalo. Bowling Green doesn't fare very well out there in Amherst. But they're taking some money. Akron as well. And then Colorado State moving all the way down to 7.5, or off of 7.5, pardon me, and up to +9 in some spots. So the market is not on Colorado State this maybe after what happened last week. But I will touch that game today. Some injury notes. A.J. Swan, starting quarterback for Vanderbilt. He's out. I don't really know if that matters. I think Georgia probably takes care of them no matter who's suiting up there quarterback. Lincoln Victor, wide receiver for Washington State, and Josh Kelly. Lincoln Victor is confirmed to be out. Josh Kelly had a spectacular one-handed grab a few weeks ago. He's been really solid for them. He could also miss. He's a game-time decision. Jalen Daniels not suiting up for Kansas. He's out. We have running back Reggie Love out again for Illinois. That if you are looking to lay the 13.5 with Maryland, that's probably a good reason to. That Illinois is down there starting running back, their top rusher, for another week. Injury news to watch for. Jake Renfro, a center for Wisconsin who transferred in with Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. He's been out all year, but they're talking about him maybe returning soon. It looks like it's less likely today and more likely maybe next week. But that would be a big addition for them, considering the current starting center is the lowest graded starter on Wisconsin's offensive line this season. The starting center for Florida's out. Kingsley, I don't know. I would butcher the heck out of that name, but he's out again this week. Trevor Etienne is in. He missed last game, but he's back in. Emeka Egbuka is out for Ohio State. I know Ohio State has an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. Julian Fleming, they got a bunch of 5 stars on that roster, but Emeka Egbuka is one of those guys that Kyle McCord is really, really familiar with, very confident in. He's not playing today. I think that's a pretty big deal, in my opinion there. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. He's the top guy that they go to, but man, missing that number 2 punch in Egbuka. He's also the punt returner. That's a big deal, I think. Definitely not nothing. Bryson Barnes is starting at quarterback today for Utah. Caton Hauser is expected to start for Michigan State over Noah Kim. They're kind of just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. They're going up against Rutgers today. They're like near the top, outside the top 100 in scoring and offense and efficiency. So they're trying whatever's working there. And then Florida State is without top wide receiver Johnny Wilson. I think that's also a pretty big one. I know they got Keon Coleman there, but again, when you're losing that reliable go-to number 2 kind of option, I don't think it's nothing. Some weather updates today. I know there's a lot going on, a lot of speculation early in the week. People, I think, are making some premature movements because you don't know what the weather is going to be like Saturday when you're looking at it on Tuesday. There has been some buyback on some overs in response to that. Like I said, Ohio State, Purdue has seen some movement on the over there. Tune in to Temple at North Texas, and I'm not joking about that, about 50 minutes, 45 minutes after kickoff. The total solar, or the solar eclipse, is going right over top of Denton. It's like 90% blacking out the sun. So that's going to be interesting. If you just want to see something fun, just flip over the channel about 45 minutes after they kick off there, 11 Central, 12 Eastern. Heavy rain is expected for Illinois at Maryland and Michigan State at Rutgers. It's going to be the mid-Atlantic area that's really taking a bulk of that rain. Fortunately, there's not a ton of home games going on there. We did see the total get bet down in UMass at Penn State. I'm not on either side of that. It's kind of a punching bag game, but the weather's not supposed to be all that great out there. We saw the under take a dive. Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, Rutgers. I think those are going to be the two games today that are really affected by the rain, like heavy rain, maybe in half an inch to an inch during the game. Wind games, because I know that was the big deal here. Iowa, Wisconsin's a big one. That is, 15, 20 mile an hour sustained higher gusts, potentially in the 30s. Keep an eye on that. I bet the under earlier. If you're in a Discord, you could have gotten 36.5. That's what I laid it at. We're down, I think, to 34 now. And that wasn't even really that big of a weather play for me. That was just Iowa's offense is completely inept and cannot score. And I don't think they'll be able to score on Wisconsin. Temple at North Texas. Besides that solar eclipse, we've also got the wind coming through. Kansas at Oklahoma State's going to be windy. And Ohio at Northern Illinois. Again, I let off the earlier with this. If you missed it, this total opened up at 57.5 at circa and is dived 2 full touchdowns. So that was a mistake, but yeah, that's going to be a windy game as well. Breezy games, I classify like 10 to 14 miles an hour. Once you hit that 15 mile an hour range, that's when totals start to be affected historically. So just a touch below that, we have USC at Notre Dame. I know people are talking about the gusts being higher, sure. But the sustained wind is why I worry more about. BYU at TCU, Akron at Central Michigan, Marshall, Georgia State, and Georgia at Vanderbilt. Those are going to be the wind games for today. Like I said, you saw the under get hit in Iowa, Wisconsin. Even more so later in the week, it got bet down, I think, from 40.5 down to that 36.5. I jumped in at 36.5. And then late last night, it got moved down to 34. Let's get into some of these games, though. I want to start with Indiana at Michigan. If you're looking for the complete rundown of all the biggest games, we do have that video up here at the Lines YouTube. Go check that out. Kelly Ford and I spent about an hour going over the big games and games we have leans in. Today, I want to bring up games that have had developments, things that are interesting, and wasn't quite enough to make it into our weekly video. There will be some overlap, however. I'm starting with Indiana at Michigan. Michigan currently a 33.5-point favorite. Kicks off in about an hour here, 50 minutes at noon Eastern on Fox. Has an over-under of 45.5 points. That leads us with an implied total or applied score of 39.5 to 6. 6 points for Power 5 Indiana here. That's no surprise. They fired their offensive coordinator after their abysmal game at Maryland. It's been one of the worst units in the country, and they fired their offensive coordinator. Keep that in mind. The fact that Michigan hadn't been covering early in the year, I think that's been sticking with people too much. They came out of the gates, they played a bunch of punching bags, and they didn't cover in any of those games. They had the Harbaugh thing going on, and they were just being conservative. It was just the last couple of games, they've put their foot down. Once Big Ten play hit, Michigan has been covering, and by a lot. I anticipate Michigan just being a wagon for the rest of the year. That's what I expected in the preseason. They came out a little flat, but man, I don't know. I have not seen that the past couple of games. They've made absolute examples. I know it's Nebraska. I know it's Minnesota, but guys, this is Indiana. I wouldn't be afraid to lay the points with Michigan. I think this is the point where they're going to turn the corner. They're going to start making statements and getting to the Michigan Wolverines, I think, that we expected before the year started. BYU at TCU. This is one I did touch in the video, but I did want to circle back around to it. There's been a couple of interesting developments. TCU, a 5-point favorite at home. This game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and it has an over-under 52.5 points, but right up there on a key figure. It's supposed to be breezy, like I said, 14 to 15 mile an hour, sustained winds, higher gusts for that. So if you want to play that into the total, fine. That's a fine angle to take. But the line moved in TCU's favor all week. And that worried me because I made an early week bet, posted it in our Discord server of BYU +5. And when it moved the other way to TCU, got as high as 6, I think maybe a juice 6.5 popped somewhere. That made me a little nervous. I don't love when the market immediately disagrees with me. However, there's been a lot of playback on BYU that began yesterday afternoon. And that's the kind of movement that I focus on and pay more attention to. So that's the sharper money. The higher limits are coming in. I feel pretty good about the BYU ticket. I think you take them. I think they're live to win outright. I don't know if the market's really caught up with how bad TCU is, especially watching what happened to Colorado last night, that utter collapse against Stanford. Reminder, TCU lost at home to that Colorado team. So They're poorly coached, in my opinion. They have a lot of turnovers. They're 3-3 despite being favored in every single game this season, twice by double digits. I mean, they're just losing. They're losing outright. And of course, they're down their starting quarterback. Chandler Morris is not playing. He sprained his MCL. He may not play for a couple of weeks. They came out and said probably not season ending, but if you have to use the term probably not season ending, not great. Josh Hoover is who will be starting in his place. He did okay. Went 11 for 19 passing, I think, with a touchdown. He threw a pick. But his start to his career has been tumultuous. He's inexperienced. He's got a big arm, but he's not as athletic as Chandler Morris. He's not as big as Chandler Morris. He's a smaller guy back there. I wouldn't be surprised if TCU and Jay Hill try to bring a lot of heat and try to get him pressured at throwing early, making bad decisions. BYU, on the other hand, is very well coached. The defense is one of the most improved units in the entire country. Like I said, Jay Hill, they brought him up from Weber State. He was the head coach not long ago. He's done a heck of a job with this unit. I think BYU's live to win outright. I'm very confident in my +5 ticket. Even threw a little money line in a round robin. They're not a bad underdog pick for that. So, yeah, I stand by it. There's been some interesting line movement all week long, but I do stand by the fact that BYU, I think, is the play on this one. Texas A&M at Tennessee. The Vols are 3-point home favorites. It kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Has an over-under 54.5, and that moved off of 55 this morning. 55 is the most frequent occurrence of point totals in the last 5 years in college football. So the most major point total you can have, and it moved off that today. So some sort of influential money is coming in. That is important. I would pay attention to that for sure. See if it maybe gets played back a little bit since it was static all week long. Texas A&M has lost 7 consecutive true road games. Jimbo Fisher is 13 in true road games. Outside of that 2020 season, and even though they played football, COVID had reduced those crowds way down. Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M is an objectively bad road team. And they're going to Neyland Stadium, which, there's 5 or 6 stadiums that may have better, louder home environments. Maybe not many maybe not even that many if you're talking about it. They're coming in there. The A&M's offensive line has also just been atrocious, and that's pretty bad considering the recruiting classes that they've had and stacked over the past few years. Namely, on the offensive line, they've had all these studs come through. I know the defensive line has been the big thing, but they've had some really good offensive line recruits and just not been able to put it together. That's their biggest issue today. Tennessee's pass rush has been pretty good too. James Pierce, you won't see him as a starter listed on our lads. He's listed as a backup, but he leads the team in sacks. He's an emerging star. Sophomore. I don't think he's NFL eligible this year. I'm pretty sure he's just a true sophomore. So we may see him be brought up and talked about in the next NFL draft cycle. Keep an eye on that. Tennessee's pass rush, I think, has a clear advantage over Texas A&M's offensive line. And Tennessee is coming off that bye week. They're playing at home where they've won 12 in a row. Texas A&M lost 7 straight. I think this is all Tennessee for me. I don't have a ticket on the Vols. I would have loved a 2.5. I may add -3 to my card today. I think this is all Tennessee at home. I don't think A&M makes this too much of a game, especially after coming off the body blows that they took against Alabama and how that game went for the full 60 minutes, right down to the last minute. This team may be a little gas going into Neyland. We have Louisville, a 7-point road favorite at Pitt. This game kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the CW, if you can find it. Has an over-under of 44.5 points. This, in my mind, is a classic setup for a letdown spot for Louisville. I outlined it in my weekly upset alerts, which have been doing pretty well. They have they're like 70% against the spread, just picking out situational points. If you're an NFL bettor and that's what you're really into, you may roll your eyes at the situation stuff, but these are college kids, and situations, I think, in college are tops. If you're not using that in your handicap, and you may be missing out on some potential edges here. I think this is a situational nightmare for Louisville. Pitt has the rest advantage. They were on bye last week. They're at home. Louisville comes off that big emotional win against Notre Dame. Field storming, then they have to hit the road, go to Acrisure or Heinz Field. And we've seen it in the market. The line moved from Louisville -10 to -7.5. I think I picked up Pitt at 8.5. I like that a lot. Pitt's another one where if you want to throw it in like a upset specialist, upset round robin, I think they're live to win the game as well. But Pitt with the points was the side. This has moved 3 full points. I'm probably not still on that train, but just a situational spot for Louisville is really bad. This is just a classic college football letdown spot. We have one of the more interesting games, I think, of the day. Hopefully you're not too enveloped watching USC Notre Dame and a couple of the other games that are on in the evening window here, but Wyoming at Air Force. I like this game a lot. The Falcons are 11-point home favorites, and it kicks off at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. It's on CBS Sports Network, so not a major channel, but this will be on one of my screens for sure. It has an over-under of just 42 points. Who can blame them there? Air Force took some late week money, moving them up from -9.5 through 10, which is the tangential key figure, into 11 points. They also have the rest advantage. They were on bye last week. Wyoming is a good team. I think worthy of being ranked in the AP poll, even though they're not. But I don't know if fraudulent is the right word, but their record isn't exactly indicative of how they've been played this year. They're 5-1, but they're being outscored on the year because of that big loss to Texas, even though it was more competitive than we expected. But they have under a +5 scoring margin in their 4 FBS wins. So we're talking about not even just single digit. We're talking about like field goal outcomes game after game after game. Luck factor has a lot to do with that. A blocked field goal here, a missed opponent field goal there, a fumble bounces a certain way, and all of a sudden you have a completely different ball game. And the Pokes have been really lucky. I believe that their number one team rankings luck metrics. I think that combines penalties and fumble and turnovers and special teams stuff. I don't know exactly what goes into it there, but you're talking about Air Force, a team that doesn't really make mistakes. I think this is an interesting barometer for Wyoming moving forward. If they're super competitive or even win this game outright, I think they're going to be a fantastic team, probably the favorite in the Mountain West. But again, you're dealing with a team that's been a little bit lucky, going against a team that doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. I would probably lean Air Force with the points at home. Troy Calhoun is also covering more than 60% of spreads in his career, which not a big trends guy, but when you're talking about a 17-season career for Calhoun, and he's a consistent over 60% against the spread, I think that's something. That means that the market usually underrates his team and that he's getting them up and ready to play better. I have 3 more left, and then I'll open it up to any games QA that you guys have here. USC at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, a 3-point home favorite now. That did move up from 2.5. It kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC, not Peacock. So if you're looking for Ohio State, Purdue, I'm not a Peacock subscriber, so I will not be watching that game, unfortunately. But USC Notre Dame is on the NBC channel, so we can watch that one. Has an over-under of 60.5 points. This is, I love rivalries. I love rivalry names. I love rivalry trophies. The battle for the jeweled shillelagh, I believe is how it's pronounced there. Notre Dame leads the all-time series 50-38-5. But my biggest question with this team, and I've been asking all week, does Notre Dame have any legs left? What's left in the tank? Are they running on E? They went to Ireland and then had back with Ohio State, at Duke with game day in town. I know they couldn't predict that, but at Louisville and now USC. 4 straight ranked opponents. The first 2 games on that docket went down to the final seconds. Hard, scrappy games. Then they play Louisville, and in the second half, they didn't look like they had any legs to me. The defense was okay, but it still looked like it was getting a little bit tired from being out there all the time. Offensive line was getting pushed. That should not happen with the kind of talent that Notre Dame has up on the offensive line. I mean, they're getting bullied by Louisville's defensive front, who I think is okay, but they're not great. And I really do think that in the second half, that was due to just being tired. And now you're dealing with going against Caleb Williams, who he makes a living running around, getting out of the pocket, throwing 60-yard bombs. Like, I really need to see Notre Dame's energy levels. And if it looks like they're running out of gas a little bit toward the end of the first half, second half is going to be tough. I'm on USC on this one. Love it at +3. I took it at +2.5 last week. I'm still okay with that. I think I have a little bit even on USC to win outright. I think USC wins this game. I know their defense is atrocious. I get it. Audric Estime probably going to have a day, but I do worry about that offensive line getting that kind of push from what I've seen the past. Honestly, that second half against Louisville is just really concerning. And I think it could be a problem again. They're tired. I get it. Whoever made the schedule, Jack Swarbrick or whoever it was, really kind of set them up for failure. Also had someone say that it's midterms week for Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's an institution in which you can't just not go to class. Like, you have to keep up your grades there. So I think that's going to play into it too. Mental fatigue, a little bit of that going on. Some injury stuff for that, though, for USC. Couple of guys to know. Zachariah Branch, he's a true game-time decision. I'm not sure if he plays. Absolutely. I mean, he's dynamic, true freshman. One of the better players on, I think, their entire team. And then starting corner Domani Jackson is not playing. He missed last week. He's out this week. Those are 2 big players I think do matter quite a bit. Keep an eye on if Zachariah Branch plays, but USC will be a little bit shorthanded here. We have NC State at Duke. Duke, a 3-point home favorite. This game kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern on the ACC network. Has an over-under of 42.5 points. The under did take some overnight money. I think that is in response to the report that Riley Leonard is like probably not playing, like he's doubtful. To me, I'm acting like he's out. I just want to remind everyone that he's out too, because a lot of people seem to forget he got hurt at the very end of that Notre Dame game. It was big, emotional. Then they went on bye, and it kind of got like swept under the rug. I hadn't seen a lot of reporting on it. And I think even odds makers forgot that he was out because they hung numbers, his first rushing total in the 40s yesterday, and those got pulled so fast. And I get it that they can't, if he doesn't play, they could just void it and they don't take any of the liability. But if he were to have started and played a quarter, or he played the whole game and he was very clearly banged up, he wasn't getting anywhere near that 40. So I think somebody forgot that he wasn't playing this game. He's technically listed as doubtful, but everything the market's saying, the under, Duke only being a 3-point favorite against NC State, they're telling you that he's not playing. And I'm guessing he's not going to play. On the other side, MJ Morris is now the starter for NC State. Brennan Armstrong did get benched. He wasn't playing very well. Morris went for 265 and 4 against Marshall, but he also threw 3 picks. Marshall's defense is solid, not that great. They lost their defensive coordinator over the offseason, who was fantastic, and they haven't been the same since. I don't know that MJ Morris is an upgrade to Brennan Armstrong, to be honest. And I don't think a lot of what benched Brennan Armstrong was really all his fault. The wide receivers are dropping a ton of passes. They went from a left-handed quarterback to a right-handed quarterback. That matters. I know that sounds silly, but because the college footballs have the white stripes on there, it rotates a different way, and it absolutely messes with the wide receiver's head. And just go look at the drop numbers. If they're up this week because they went from, or last week and they went from, left-handed to right-handed, or maybe they improved because they didn't love the left-handed delivery. The right-handed delivery is a little bit easier to see maybe for those that have been playing with right-handed quarterbacks their whole life. Again, that matters a little bit. Just something to keep on there. Duke's defense is very disruptive as well. I think this is just a poor matchup for MJ Morris. I don't expect anything big from him. Even without Riley Leonard, if I had to lean, I'd probably take Duke -3 at home, just because they're the better defense. They're better coached. And I don't trust anything about NC State at the moment. I don't trust their offense or their defense. A final game on the docket here, and then I will turn it loose to anybody that has a Q&A about any of the games I did not touch on here. We have Boise State, an 8.5-point road favorite at Colorado State, and it kicks off at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Grab your coffee for this one. Kicks off on FS1 with an over-under of 60.5 points. This did move up, though, from Boise -7.5 to -9. I think it was at -9, got bet down. Colorado State saw some early to midweek action, and then Boise State caught the late week action. Again, higher limits, sharper movement at the end of the week there. So I think the Boise State money is pretty legit. Both of these teams, though, are very beat up. We're talking about Colorado State. Their top running back, Avery Morrow, may not play. He's been injured. He was injured in the preseason. I don't know if it's a re-aggravated injury. It's kind of hard to find updates on those. Top pass rusher, Mohamed Kamara. He's the NCAA sacks leader right now. He's beat up. It sounds like he's trending toward playing, but he was injured and did leave the game late against Utah State last week. On the other side, Boise State, running back George Halani hasn't played at all this year, and that's okay because they've had Ashton Genty come out and be one of the most explosive and electric players, not just in the Mountain West, but in the whole country. But George Halani doesn't look like he's playing this week. He's out again. Starting offensive lineman Ben Dooley hasn't played since week 2. Their starting linebacker DJ Schramm has been out the last couple of games. Like, this is a team that's missing a lot of key starters and have been. And also their quarterback, Taylon Green, who I was really, really excited for this year. He just hasn't lived up to expectations. And now he's actually splitting starting reps with another guy. So we're talking about a team that's playing the 2 quarterback game. They're missing a lot of their vocal leaders, a lot of their starters on both offense and defense. Boise State's a tough team for me right now. But Colorado State, last week, they got off to that 17-0 start. Then they gave up 37 unanswered points to Utah State. They're not a very sound tackling team. So that's a problem when you have a guy like Ashton Genty across the way that can break up 1,000 million tackles per rush. I don't have a lean in this one, but it sure seems that the sharp market is all over Boise overnight and late in the week here. So those are the games I have for you. Fortunately, this will be archived, so if you missed the beginning of it, you can go back and watch the beginning. But before I close up shop, if you have any Q&A, please drop them in the chat here. If not, join our Discord server. 4,000 sports betting fans in that community right now. Saturdays are our most electric days in the college football betting chat. You can find the link on my Twitter at Road to CFB. You can find it pasted all over the Lines YouTube channel. You can ask questions in there. I'll be active in it all week or all day. I'm in there probably for the next 16 hours. So thanks for joining me here on YouTube. I will wait for a couple of minutes here. If anybody has anything, drop in the live chat. Please do. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you. Okay. Well, play this back. I think a lot of interesting late developments, weather, injuries, odds, anything like that to hopefully help you with your edges today. Otherwise, good luck. Don't forget, if you're not already subscribed to Lines YouTube here, find our podcast as well, the College Football Podcast. I do it with Kelly Ford each and every week, multiple times a week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts alike. Drop a like on this video. Drop a comment in here. We do have a question. Indiana, Michigan, over or under? When you're dealing with a point spread this big and a total this low, if you're betting over, you're kind of betting on the prospect that Indiana scores more than 6 points. Um, Indiana's been mucking games up. So if there's anything here at 45.5, it's pretty low. I'd almost go under because Michigan runs one of the slowest paces in the country. In Indiana, as you saw against Ohio State, when they're completely overmatched, they like to play ball control. They like to run that option with like 6 different quarterbacks that they do. I think I'd probably lean under, even at 45.5. It's kind of gross, but yeah, hold your nose and do that. I don't trust them to score more than 6 points. Parlay Texas. Texas is off today. Which Texas are we talking about here? The Longhorns don't play today. Michigan State money line. I feel like Rutgers is bad, and Michigan State plays Michigan. Yeah. Texas Tech. I'll circle back to that here in a second. Rutgers is bad, but Michigan State can't really score on anybody. That's half a pulse, and Rutgers defense is actually like pretty solid. It's interesting that it sits on a dead number and didn't move at all, like all season or all week. Pardon me. That it just kind of stayed static at that 4.5. Let me do a quick refresh here and see if we've seen any like really last second stuff. No, it's still 4.5. I don't mind Michigan State on that side. And I certainly don't mind the money line. If they're going to come out and play well under a new quarterback, that's the way to do it. Rutgers defense is pretty suffocating. They're pretty disruptive, and Michigan State starting a new quarterback today. So do that as you may. I don't hate it, and I absolutely don't hate the idea that since they play Michigan next week, that it's a look ahead spot. Absolutely. I can get on board with that. Texas Tech and Georgia State. I do like Georgia State quite a great deal. Marshall's defense really isn't like that great. Let me do a quick search for the odds here. Marshall's defense hasn't been as good as imagined. And again, like this is another line that stayed at the -1. I know 0 is a dead number, but like it's kind of stayed static all week long. So there either are conflicting sharp sides, but I haven't seen jumps in that. So that tells me that a lot of people are looking at this and saying, I think that's fair. If you're going to take Georgia State, take them on the money line rather than the spread there. But Marshall is definitely, like, if you're looking at like bowl pools or not bowl pools, but pick 'em pools and stuff, Marshall may not be a bad contrarian pick there, but I don't hate it. I don't have a play in that game personally myself. And Texas Tech, I'm on Kansas State for that one. I have a much stronger lean in that game. Kansas State played one poor game. I know Will Howard's not great on the road, and they're going to Lubbock, which is objectively a difficult place to play. I've seen a few games there. It's loud. It's weird. It's out in the middle of absolute nowhere. The students are just bearing down on you the whole game. That's a tough place to play, but I don't know. I think Kansas State's still a fine team. They lost kind of a fluky game today. Or not today, but they lost a fluky game last week against Oklahoma State. It was kind of weird. I still think they're a decent team. So I'm on Kansas State on that one. No lean in the other one. So do with that as you may. I took Houston for the same reason. They played Texas. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. Good on you. I'm proud of you for the Houston play. That worked out, man. Let's see. The fade Ohio State today. Uh, yeah, I mean that's where the money's been. It's not exactly at the best number anymore. Down to 17. It was 20 and a half all week long. This to me, so my bet in this game is the first half. If you can still find Purdue plus 10 and a half in the first half, that's something I played and put my best bets piece at thelines.com this week. Because Ohio State comes out flat. I think West Lafayette's a weird place to play if they are dealing with some, stronger winds, some precipitation, pardon me. But I think that helps out Ohio State a little bit. But this is a game where I think it sets up a lot like Maryland last week, where it's like they come out, they may be flat. Purdue may game the game for the first half, but ultimately, maybe they're even looking ahead to that Penn State game. But ultimately, talent wins out, and it could be something where, at the end of the day, it's like, wow, okay, they cover that full game spread. So I like the first half better. That's what I played. If you can find plus 10 and a half on Purdue first half, that's my play there. And yeah, just on the wide receiver two thing, the Emeka Ibuka, that's a huge loss. I think that's one of the guys that Kyle McCord is really comfortable with, and not a lot of guys that Kyle McCord's really comfortable with. I've not been impressed with him this year, so missing that second kind of crutch is an issue. Joe Milton over 1.5. Yeah, Joe Milton he's been a big old disappointment. I haven't been impressed with him. He was somebody that I put a quick uh, long shot Heisman bet on, and that certainly has not worked out. Yep, Raining Badley and Piscataway. Yep, that's one of the two games, that and the Maryland game are the two that are going to be dealing with like legitimate like game disrupting rain. Let me circle back. I was trying to delay here while I pulled up Milton's props. Uh, let's see. Yeah, I mean his yards are all over the place. 239, 250. I mean Texas A&M's weakness is in the secondary. So if you're looking for them to be vulnerable anywhere, and they run the similar thing against Texas A&M. Yeah, you saw how Texas A&M's defense handled Jalen Milroe last week, and I think Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton have very similar tendencies, where it's kind of they either check down or they're throwing 20 yards downfield. And Texas A&M did not do a very good job defending that down the field. Actually, I actually think it was a schematic thing. DJ Durkin was like letting them throw deep. I don't know what it was. They weren't funneling intermediate passes, and that's a problem because I don't think Joe Milton or Jalen Milroe can throw intermediate passes, and A&M didn't really do a whole lot to funnel that to the middle of the field. They challenged them to throw downfield. Well, you're dealing with Jalen Milroe, maybe one of the two or three best downfield passers in the country. And that's what Joe Milton likes to do. He likes to gun the ball down the field. I have not been impressed, though, with the wide receiving core. Squirrel White's been solid. I was expecting a little bit more from him during the season, but I mean, they're missing Brew McCoy, so that's kind of tough. I'm going to say no to the over 1.5. I'm not telling you not to bet it, but I'm not betting it myself just because too many questions with the wide receivers. But at the same time, Texas A&M, schematically, they kind of let you do what you want as long as you're throwing downfield on them. So that's that. Hopefully, I gave you a little bit to think about, at least on each side. All right. If you have any more Q&A, drop them in here. I'll be happy to stay on as long as we need here. Some great questions so far. I appreciate each and every one of you for popping in here. For some of the likes, the questions, I really do appreciate it. Last thoughts on USC UW. Separate games like USC Notre Dame and then Washington Oregon. Or are we talking about a future game here? UW and Oregon. Okay. Yeah, this one will be really fascinating because there's been a lot of sharp money on both sides. Like that, this is going to be a big head-to-head in the market. Lots of betting groups have been on either side. And you've seen as soon as it touches 3.5, boom, it gets bet down to 3. Even earlier in the week, it was 2.5, gets bet up to 3, and boom, there's immediate buyback. So it's a game that I don't have any stake in today, to be honest. Just because I really want to sit down and enjoy this game. But if I did have to handicap it, I do a much longer, better explanation on our Saturday slate If you want to go and look at that here on the Lines YouTube, we have about 7 minutes breaking that one down. But just really quickly, Washington does not defend the run very well, and Oregon is the number one rushing efficiency team in the country. But if you're looking at the other side, Washington has the better coaching staff in my mind. Slightly, I like Dan Lanning, but I still think Washington is the better coaching staff. They have the better quarterback, in my opinion. Michael Penix should be the Heisman front runner as long as he doesn't lose. And their group of wide receivers is something else, man. I'd like to see Oregon defend all three guys. It reminds me of, and I'm not trying to speak in hyperbole here. It reminds me of the Ohio State crew. That was Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. This Jalen Polk guy, man, he's fantastic. So just keep an eye on that. I mean, if you're just thinking like sound betting mechanics, it's like, you probably take Oregon with the points at this point. But if it's at -3 and you really like Washington, that's probably the way to go there. Husky Stadium is one of the most difficult places to play in the entire country. It's something that Bo Nix is familiar with because he's played in the SEC. But this is his first game at Husky Stadium, I believe, since coming to Oregon. And, Oregon's not new to the sound there, but it is a new staff, new quarterback. I would expect the crowd to be an issue. So if you're looking for that, if you twist my arm, make me choose, I probably lean Washington with the points at home. On that 3, if you're looking at 3.5, though, like if you're looking for a reason, bet Oregon, the 3.5 is the way to go. Let me look at some player stuff actually for that, player props. I know the anytime touchdown mark has been jacked up all year long because they don't want you to bet it. They want you to just lose out. Yeah, if you can find a decent number, if you can find Jalen Polk north of like 200 for anytime touchdown, that's not something I hate too much. He's been very good. And again, the third receiver when you're dealing with 2 potential first round draft picks this coming year tend to get lost in the shuffle. Seems like the public is on Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Iowa State. Well, good. I think Georgia and Cincinnati are the better sides on those. So that's not so bad. I think Georgia just squishes Vanderbilt. It's going to be a home game for Georgia, even though it's on the road in Vanderbilt. We've all seen what they do to that stadium. And something I haven't heard a lot about with Iowa State, Cincinnati. Nippert Stadium is an extremely, extremely difficult place to play. Maybe like its absolute top, Texas Tech maybe take the crown, but guys, Cincinnati might be the loudest. I think, I think it might be the loudest in the Big 12. I've seen a couple of games there, and it's like deafening. They're right on top of you. They built it up so that there's buildings around the stadium so the noise gets funneled in. People love Cincinnati Bearcat football. It's one of the premier game days in the country, I think. And that's not being talked about enough. Iowa State came off an outright upset of TCU, and then they're coming into a very difficult place to play. I don't think, Cincinnati, you can look at the record. I don't think the record is necessarily indicative of how they played this year. A couple of those box scores at the end have been a little off, a little unlucky. I think they take, I think Cincinnati wins today. I don't really have much to say on the Arkansas game personally. I think all 3 lose and don't cover. Yeah, I'm probably there with you. If you guys are looking for some like underdogs to play today, I know that's kind of the real big exciting thing that people love doing. Only got 20 minutes till kickoff. I'm going to pull up my upset alert article here that's been doing pretty decently against the spread. If you want to bet the points with Purdue, go for it. But like I gave out here, first half plus 10.5, if you can find that. So these underdogs that I picked base just solely on situational spots. It has very little to do with the actual matchup itself. It's just like, hey, does this team have a look ahead? Are they coming off a letdown? Do they have a string of tough games in a row? I took Purdue plus 10.5 in the first half. Pitt, I know that number's been bet way down to 7. Not sure I'm there yet anymore on it, but Pitt against Louisville, classic letdown spot for Louisville. Auburn at LSU. I really like Auburn a great deal here. It's down to 11. I'd still bet at 11. I got it at 12. But I think Auburn here is pretty live to cover that spread. You're talking about Auburn is coming off a bye week, even though they're hitting the road. I know it's Saturday night in Death Valley, maybe the most difficult place to play in all of college football. But LSU's come off 3 straight 1-score games and also a third consecutive game where like there's been 60 points scored. It's been a 60-minute game. I think the legs are wearing thin on LSU. So I don't know if I take Auburn win outright, but I'm definitely taking them with the points here today. LSU's defense is so bad that Auburn should be able to cover here. So yeah, that's kind of my last little nugget for you guys. If there's anything else, please throw it in here. If not, join us on Discord. You can find the link on my Twitter at Road to CFB. You can find it at the Lions Twitter at the Lions US. Top 4 teams that cover the spread. Let me go ahead and pull up my best bets, because that's probably the way that I would go with that. Now keep in mind, this is not in any sort of order. I'm not like power ranking these one through whatever. Purdue first half, I love. BYU with the points. I bet at +5 earlier. Mark has been all over BYU overnight. I like BYU +5. I like Auburn. I got it +12, +11. I think it's still live. USC +3 for sure. I would even take them to win outright. So those are my 3 favorites, and then my 4th being that Purdue plus 10.5 first, or 10.5 first half. Thoughts on FSU minus 18.5? Yeah, they took some money overnight. It was down to 17.5. I'm seeing as high as 19. So late high limit bettors are coming in. They like Florida State. Florida State's without Johnny Wilson. There's another starting offensive lineman that's down. Bless Harris is his name. And then there's another guy, Robert Scott, who's not been playing much this year, but he is back. But I do believe he's on a limited snap count. Jaheim Bell is in. One other major player is back in Florida State. His name is escaping me. But if you're looking for, Syracuse isn't very good. It's a home game. They just got, boat raced by North Carolina. So keep that in mind. Probably Florida State or nothing for me, but I don't know. It seems like every team that Florida State plays, I know Boston College has been they're just as good as they need to be team this year. And that's why they gave Florida State a tough time. But Florida State hasn't been exactly blowing these opponents out since they beat LSU, and that loss is that win, I'm sorry, is looking worse and worse throughout the year. Georgia spread looks like a fade to me. I don't know. I don't think so. I think they absolutely crush Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's got a backup quarterback in it's a little bit of a difference. It's not a huge difference, but they're going to take over Vanderbilt Stadium. That's going to be a home game. And it just kind of seems like the part of the year where Georgia's like, we need to wake up, just like them in Michigan, where they're going to start stepping on people. Here's an update. Trevion Henderson for Ohio State is not dressed to pregame. He went out there and ran around a little bit, but he will not play. Rocket Sanders is also out for Arkansas. So for that Arkansas question, I can't possibly bet on Arkansas without Rocket Sanders back there. EJ Warner for Temple is not participating in pregame warmups. That's tough. So I hope you don't have a Temple ticket, because that's going to hurt. I know North Texas doesn't have a very good defense, but yeah, there's some late additions there. Okay, noon slate gets kicked off here in 15 minutes, so I'm going to close up shop here. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions. This was an awesome chat. Thanks for joining me today. Good luck on your bets, and if you'd like, join us in Discord. You can find the link at the Lions US on Twitter and at me, Road to CFB. I will see you all next week. I think we're going to do this every week here on YouTube. But thanks again. Good luck with your bets.